Staying calm is often misunderstood. Many people believe it means never feeling irritation, never feeling frustration, or never feeling anger at all. They imagine calm as a kind of emotional shutdown, a state where nothing touches you and nothing matters. But that is not what calm truly is. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain steady while emotion moves through you. Anger does not arrive as an enemy. It arrives as information. It tells you that something feels wrong, unexpected, or out of alignment with how you think the world should be. The problem is not that anger appears. The problem is what we do the moment it does. Most people react without noticing. A thought forms. A judgment follows, and before there is space to reflect, words are spoken, actions are taken, and calm is lost. Stoicism begins at an earlier point. It asks you to slow down enough to see what is actually happening inside you. Not to fight the feeling, not to suppress it, but to understand it. Because anger rarely begins with an event, it begins with a thought about the event. Something happens, and the mind quietly says, "This should not be happening. This is unfair. This is disrespectful. This should be different." That single thought is where disturbance begins. The Stoics observed this long ago. They noticed that events themselves are neutral. They simply occur. What disturbs us is the meaning we attach to them. A delay is just a delay. A comment is just a sound. A look is just a look. It is the interpretation that gives these things power. When you believe that someone has wronged you, anger grows. When you believe that something should not have happened, frustration tightens. When you believe that reality owes you cooperation, calm disappears. Not because reality is cruel, but because the mind has decided to argue with it. This is why trying to control the world never brings peace. The world does not adjust itself to your preferences. People do not behave according to your expectations. Circumstances do not consult your comfort. Stoicism does not promise a quieter world, it promises a quieter relationship with the world. And that relationship begins with clarity. The Stoics made a simple but powerful distinction. There are things that are within your control and things that are not. Your thoughts are yours. Your judgments are yours. Your responses are yours. Other people's actions are not. Their moods are not. Their opinions are not. Their behavior is not. Anger often arises when this boundary becomes blurred. When you try to control what cannot be controlled, tension follows. When you expect others to act according to your inner rules, disappointment appears. When you attach your peace to external behavior, calm becomes fragile. The Stoic path is not about indifference. It is about precision. It is about placing your attention only where it belongs. You do not need to approve of everything that happens to remain calm. You do not need to like people's behavior to remain steady. You do not need to pretend that things do not bother you. You only need to recognize what is truly yours to manage. Anger feels powerful because it arrives with urgency. It demands immediate action. It insists that something must be said, corrected, or defended right now. But urgency is rarely wisdom. Most reactions feel justified in the moment and unnecessary afterward. Most arguments feel important while they are happening and empty once they are over. Stoicism teaches patience not as passivity but as strength. Between what happens and how you respond, there is always a space. That space may be brief, but it exists. In that space, you are free. Free to pause, free to breathe, free to choose restraint over reaction. Most people never notice this space. They live inside impulse. Their emotions speak before reflection arrives. Calm begins when you start to notice that moment, not to force yourself into silence, not to deny what you feel, but to delay action just long enough for clarity to return. This delay changes everything. When you stop reacting immediately, anger loses momentum. It does not vanish instantly, but it softens. It becomes manageable. You begin to see that you do not have to express every feeling to honor it. You do not have to act on every impulse to be authentic. There is dignity in restraint. Stoicism never asks you to become cold. It asks you to become grounded. A grounded person feels emotion fully, but does not allow emotion to govern behavior. They experience anger without becoming it. They notice irritation without surrendering to it. This is what it means to remain unbothered. Not that nothing touches you, but that nothing controls you. Calm is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you return to again and again. Each moment of awareness strengthens it. Each decision not to react deepens it. The goal is not perfection. The goal is practice. When anger appears, you do not need to judge yourself. You do not need to analyze endlessly. You only need to notice. Notice the thought that triggered it. Notice the expectation underneath it. Notice the desire for control hidden inside it. And then gently release what does not belong to you. This is where Stoic calm begins. Not in silence, not in withdrawal, but in understanding. In the next reflection, we will look more closely at why other people seem to disturb us so deeply, and why what bothers us is often pointing inward rather than outward. For now, simply remember this. You are not required to react to everything you feel. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to choose calm, and that choice, made repeatedly, changes how anger moves through your life. When we feel disturbed by others, it often seems obvious where the problem lies. Someone speaks carelessly. Someone behaves unfairly. Someone ignores us, criticizes us, or acts without consideration. It feels natural to believe that our anger is caused by them. But Stoicism invites a quieter question. Not, what did they do? But, what did I expect? Most anger is born from expectation. We expect people to be reasonable. We expect them to understand our intentions. We expect them to act with the same awareness we believe we possess. And when they do not, the mind resists. This resistance is subtle at first. A tightening, a feeling of being wronged, a thought that says they should know better. But people rarely act from clarity. They act from habit, from fear, from distraction, from their own unexamined emotions. They are often reacting just as quickly as we do. When you expect emotional maturity from someone who has not cultivated it, frustration is inevitable. When you expect calm behavior from someone ruled by impulse, disappointment follows. Stoicism does not ask you to excuse harmful behavior. It asks you to see it clearly. Clear sight removes surprise. And without surprise, anger weakens. Much of what disturbs us is not what people do, but the meaning we assign to it. A tone becomes disrespect. Silence becomes rejection. A disagreement becomes a personal attack. The mind fills in gaps quickly, and it rarely fills them with generosity. This is why Stoicism emphasizes interpretation. You may not control what someone says, but you do control the story you tell yourself about why they said it. That story determines whether calm remains or disappears. Consider how often anger fades once you realize that something was not personal, that it came from stress, from misunderstanding, from ignorance rather than intent. Stoicism trains you to pause before assigning motive, not to excuse, but to soften judgment. Judgment is heavy. It burdens the mind. It sharpens emotion. It locks you into reaction. When judgment loosens, calm has room to return. Another source of anger is the need to be seen as right, the desire to correct, to defend, to prove. This need can feel righteous, even necessary, But Stoicism asks what that need costs you. How much peace is sacrificed to win an argument? How much energy is drained replaying conversations long after they end? Most arguments do not resolve anything. They simply extend disturbance. The Stoics understood that dignity does not come from domination. It comes from self-command. You do not lose strength by letting go. You gain freedom. Freedom from rehearsing words. Freedom from resentment. Freedom from carrying another person's behavior long after the moment has passed. Remaining calm often means allowing others to be wrong, allowing them to misunderstand you, allowing conversations to end without resolution. This feels uncomfortable at first. The ego resists, but the ego is not the source of peace. Peace comes from restraint. Silence is one of the most misunderstood Stoic tools. Silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is not surrender. Silence is space. It creates distance between stimulus and response. It prevents emotion from escalating. It allows clarity to arrive before action. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every provocation requires engagement. Not every misunderstanding must be corrected. Often, the calmest response is no response at all. Anger feeds on reaction. Without reaction, it starves. Another overlooked cause of anger is exhaustion. When energy is depleted, tolerance shrinks. Small things feel overwhelming. Minor frustrations feel personal. Stoicism recognizes the role of inner resources. You are more likely to feel disturbed when you are tired, hungry, overstimulated, or emotionally drained. This is not a moral failure. It is a signal. Boundaries protect calm. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to reduce exposure to situations and people that repeatedly disturb your balance. Stoicism is not about enduring everything. It is about choosing wisely where you place your energy. Anger often arises when we give too much for too long, when we ignore our own limits, when we mistake endurance for virtue. But endurance without reflection leads to resentment. Calm requires honesty with yourself. Another Stoic insight is this: words do not define your worth. Criticism can feel sharp, even when it is careless or inaccurate. But your value is not shaped by someone else's perception. It is not diminished by misunderstanding. It is not threatened by disagreement. Stoicism teaches separation. Separate who you are from what is said about you. If criticism contains something useful, take it. If it does not, release it. Holding on to every opinion is exhausting. Letting go is restful. Much anger comes from carrying things that were never meant to be carried. Judgments, expectations, other people's moods. When you release what is not yours, calm returns naturally. This is why Stoicism emphasizes attention. Where attention goes, emotion follows. If attention remains fixed on insult, anger grows. If attention returns to the present moment, anger softens. The present moment is neutral. It does not argue. It does not accuse. It simply is. When attention rests here, perspective widens. You begin to see that most disturbances are temporary, most conflicts fade, most frustrations resolve or lose importance with time. Anger feels permanent only while you are inside it. Stepping back reveals its impermanence. This does not mean suppressing feeling. It means allowing it to pass without interference. Anger held tightly lingers. Anger observed gently dissolves. The Stoics trusted time and awareness more than force. They knew that calm cannot be demanded. It must be allowed. Each moment of restraint strengthens this allowance. Each choice not to react reinforces steadiness. This is how you become less bothered over time, not by hardening yourself, but by loosening your grip. As this understanding deepens, you begin to notice something subtle. Situations that once triggered you now pass more quietly. Comments that once lingered now fade quickly. Delays that once frustrated now feel neutral. Not because the world has changed, but because your relationship with it has. This is Stoic calm in practice. In the next reflection, we will explore how time, mortality, and perspective further reduce anger's hold, and why remembering the temporary nature of things brings unexpected peace. For now, simply notice where you place your expectations. Notice where you demand control, and gently return attention to what is yours. That return is where calm continues to grow. Over time, another realization begins to settle. Many of the things that disturb us feel urgent only because we forget how temporary they are. A harsh word feels permanent in the moment. A disagreement feels defining. An inconvenience feels like an obstacle that should not exist. But time has a way of quietly dissolving intensity. Stoicism invites you to widen the frame, to step back from the immediacy of feeling and view events from a longer perspective. Ask yourself, not loudly, but gently, will this matter tomorrow? Will this matter in a year? Will this matter when life has moved forward, as it always does? Often, the answer is no. This does not minimize experience. It places it in proportion. Anger thrives when moments are isolated from context. Calm returns when context is restored. The Stoics often reflected on impermanence, not to become detached, but to remain grounded. Everything passes. Emotions pass. Conflicts pass. Reputations pass. Even the strongest reactions soften with time. When you remember this, urgency fades. You realize that many reactions are attempts to preserve something that is already changing. Another perspective that weakens anger is the awareness of shared human limitation. Everyone you encounter is struggling with something unseen. Everyone carries worry, insecurity, fear, or fatigue. When someone behaves poorly, it is often an expression of inner turbulence rather than intention. This does not excuse harm, but it explains it. Stoicism teaches compassion without surrender. Compassion allows you to understand without absorbing, to see clearly without becoming entangled. When you understand that most people act from their own unresolved states, anger loses its personal edge. You stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and begin seeing, "This is who they are in this moment." This shift is quiet, but powerful. It removes the sense of attack. It restores emotional distance. Distance creates calm. Another Stoic practice that reduces anger is voluntary simplicity. Not material simplicity alone, but emotional simplicity. Reducing how much you demand from situations. Reducing how much you expect from others. Reducing how tightly you hold outcomes. The more you require reality to conform to preference, the more friction you experience. The Stoics advised wanting what happens, not because everything is good, but because resistance multiplies suffering. When you stop arguing with what already exists, energy is freed. This does not mean passivity. It means choosing your struggles. Anger often arises when we fight what cannot be changed. Calm grows when we accept what is and act only where action matters. Control is another illusion that fuels anger. We believe that if we manage things carefully enough, disturbance can be avoided. But life resists control. Plans change. People disappoint. Circumstances shift without warning. Stoicism teaches a simple division. Some things are within your control. Most things are not. Your judgments, your intentions, your actions, these belong to you. Outcomes do not. When anger arises, it is often because attention has drifted toward what lies outside your control. Returning attention inward restores balance. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how much space their behavior occupies in your mind. You cannot control events, but you can control the meaning you assign to them. Meaning shapes emotion. Another subtle source of anger is comparison. Watching others succeed, seeing others receive recognition, feeling overlooked. Comparison creates resentment quietly. Stoicism advises withdrawing from this habit, not because comparison is immoral, but because it is corrosive. It shifts focus away from your own path. It places peace in the hands of external validation. When you measure yourself against others, calm becomes conditional. Conditional calm is fragile. Stoic calm is internal. It does not depend on praise. It does not collapse under criticism. It remains steady because it is rooted in self-respect, not approval. This self-respect grows when you live according to your values, not reactions. When you act with restraint even when provoked. When you choose silence over escalation. When you prioritize peace over victory. Each of these choices reinforces calm. Anger often feels powerful, but it is draining. Calm feels quiet, but it is sustaining. The Stoics understood energy as something to be guarded. Wasting energy on resentment leaves little for what truly matters. Another reflection that softens anger is mortality, not in a dramatic way, but as a grounding reminder. Life is finite. Time is limited. Many conflicts that consume attention today will not matter in the long view of life. Holding on to anger shortens the space available for presence. Stoicism asks, is this worth the cost? Is this frustration worth the time it steals? Often, the answer arrives quietly, no. Letting go becomes easier when you recognize the value of attention. Attention is life. Where you place it determines the quality of your days. Anger pulls attention backward. Calm returns it to the present. Another Stoic insight is that peace does not require resolution. Many people believe calm will arrive once everything is explained, corrected, or understood. But life rarely offers perfect closure. Waiting for resolution delays peace. Stoicism allows peace without conclusion. You can move on even when questions remain unanswered. You can be calm even when situations are imperfect. This is not avoidance. It is wisdom. It recognizes that inner stability does not depend on external completion. Often, anger persists because we replay events mentally. Rehearsing conversations, imagining responses, rewriting outcomes. This mental repetition keeps emotion alive. Stoicism encourages returning attention to the body, to the breath, to posture, to sensation. The body lives in the present. When attention returns to physical awareness, the mind loosens its grip. This is why calm often follows a moment of stillness. Stillness interrupts rumination. Over time, you begin to notice patterns. Certain situations trigger you more easily. Certain topics ignite emotion quickly. Awareness of these patterns allows preparation. Preparation is not avoidance, it is readiness. When you expect disturbance, it loses power. Surprise feeds anger. Anticipation dissolves it. Stoicism is not about eliminating emotion, it is about shortening its duration. Feeling anger briefly is human, holding on to it is optional. As these reflections accumulate, calm becomes familiar, not constant, but accessible. You return to it more quickly. You leave disturbance sooner. This is progress, not dramatic, but real. In the next reflection, we will deepen this understanding by exploring daily mental habits that quietly reinforce calm and how repetition shapes emotional resilience over time. For now, allow this awareness to settle. Notice where you resist. Notice where you tighten. And gently release what is not necessary. That release continues the work already begun. With time, something subtle begins to change. You start noticing that calm is no longer something you chase only after things go wrong. It becomes something you carry quietly into situations before they unfold. This is where Stoic practice deepens, not as theory, not as philosophy alone, but as a way of meeting each moment. Calm, at this stage, is not reactive. It is preparatory. You begin your day with an inner posture of steadiness, not expecting perfection, not demanding ease, but accepting that challenges will appear, and trusting yourself to meet them without losing balance. This trust matters. Anger often arises when we doubt our ability to endure discomfort. When we feel overwhelmed by irritation, we react sharply. But when you trust your resilience, urgency fades. You realize you do not need to defend yourself from every unpleasant moment. You can endure discomfort without becoming it. Stoicism teaches that strength is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not rush to correct. It does not demand recognition. It simply remains. As this strength grows, you begin to respond rather than react. Someone speaks harshly. Instead of tension rising instantly, there is space, a pause. In that pause, you remember that their words are sounds, not commands. You remember that your worth is intact. You remember that your peace does not require their understanding. And so you choose restraint, not because you are weak, but because you are no longer pulled. Another shift occurs when you stop personalizing behavior. Not everything is about you. Most things are about the inner world of the person acting. When someone interrupts, criticizes, ignores, or dismisses, it is often an expression of their own unrest. Seeing this clearly removes the sting. You stop internalizing what was never meant for you. Stoicism calls this freedom from impression. The event arrives, but the judgment does not attach. And without judgment, anger finds no place to stay. This does not make you passive. It makes you selective. You engage where engagement is meaningful. You disengage where engagement would cost peace. Over time, this selectivity becomes instinct. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop rehearsing arguments that will never happen. You stop carrying conversations long after they have ended. This lightness is not indifference. It is emotional economy. Energy is no longer wasted on what does not serve. Another practice that reinforces calm is deliberate slowing, not moving slower physically, but slowing internally, taking time before responding, allowing silence, letting moments breathe. Silence, when chosen, is not absence. It is presence. It signals confidence. It shows that you do not need to fill every space with reaction. Often, silence resolves more than explanation ever could. The Stoics understood this deeply. They observed that many conflicts escalate because words are added too quickly. Removing words removes fuel. Calm grows in restraint. As days pass, you may notice anger appearing less frequently, not because life is easier, but because you no longer meet difficulty with resistance. Resistance magnifies pain. Acceptance neutralizes it. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledging reality as it is. Reality does not require your agreement to exist. Fighting it only drains you. Working with it preserves energy. This shift transforms daily life. Small inconveniences no longer dominate attention. Minor frustrations lose their emotional charge. What once lingered for hours now passes in moments. This is progress, not dramatic, but profound. Another layer of calm comes from aligning actions with values. When you act according to who you choose to be, regret diminishes. Anger often follows behavior that contradicts inner standards. When actions and values align, peace follows naturally. Stoicism emphasizes character over circumstance. You cannot control outcomes, but you can control integrity. When integrity is intact, external chaos loses influence. You know who you are, and that knowing anchors you. As calm stabilizes, compassion grows, not forced compassion, but natural understanding. You see people not as obstacles, but as fellow travelers, each carrying unseen burdens, each navigating their own inner weather. This perspective softens interaction. It reduces friction. It replaces judgment with clarity. You still set boundaries. You still protect yourself, but without hostility. Boundaries drawn calmly are stronger than those drawn in anger. They are clearer. They last longer. Another realization emerges. Peace is not fragile. It does not break easily once established. It bends. It adapts. It returns. Even when disturbed, it comes back faster. This is the result of practice, of repetition, of choosing calm again and again. Not perfectly, but consistently. Stoicism never demanded perfection. It asked only for effort. Each moment offers a choice, to escalate or to release, to react or to reflect, to cling or to let go. Over time, these choices shape character. Character shapes experience. Experience shapes peace. Eventually, calm becomes familiar territory. You recognize it. You return to it. You trust it. And when anger arises, as it sometimes will, you meet it differently. Not with fear, not with shame, but with awareness. You notice it. You allow it. You release it. Without drama, without attachment. This is emotional mastery, not suppression, not avoidance, but balance. As you move forward, remember this. Calm is not something you achieve once. It is something you practice daily, in small moments. In quiet decisions. In the way you respond when no one is watching. Each pause strengthens it. Each restraint reinforces it. Each choice for peace builds it. And slowly, almost without noticing, life becomes lighter, not because challenges disappear, but because you are no longer weighed down by unnecessary resistance. You move through the world steadier, clearer, less shaken, more grounded. This is the Stoic path, not loud, not dramatic, but enduring. And it is always available to you, here, now, with the next breath. And the next choice.